Shadow Hack. Chapter 21, 3 Weirdos. That's right, here are 30 pieces of survivor armor, which were prepared by our lucky Wind City for all of you new Fluxers. Now everyone come and pick. Use the 2 days time to familiarize yourself with the survivor battle armor. Tangan nodded his head towards the equipment in the 2 boxes, verifying that it indeed was the survivor battle armor. Heavens, it really is the survivor battle armor. Many people gasped in admiration. But some others like Luo Jin, Huo Wu as well as Lu Nyaja, Zhou Jing, a total of 7 people didn't make any movements. The reason was very simple, these 7 people had already congealed their own flux battle armor. Although the weapons of humanity had advanced, they still couldn't catch the attention of these people. After all, these battle armor were an external object made with science, so how could it compare to the formidable flux battle armor? Li Yunmu also hadn't moved because he already had the War Shrine's battle soldier equipment passed on to him by his father, which was much better compared to these survivor armor. One was named Survival, while the other was named Battle Soldier. The difference between the 2 battle equipment could be seen from just their names. Strictly speaking, the survivor battle armor could only be considered as a battle armor and hadn't reached the grade of battle weapons. In general, battle weapons substantially increase the user's overall battle strength and not just simply increase their defense. But the battle armor also has a few practical functions to increase the survival of the user apart from increasing their defense. For example, it is extremely temperature resistant, it can keep the user warm even at temperatures as low as -50 degrees. It even has an emergency oxygen supply for 3 hours installed in it and could absorb the moisture in the air and transform it into a limited amount of clean water, thus ensuring that the minimum requirement of water by the user was maintained. Honestly speaking, if Li Yunmu didn't have the battle soldier equipment, then this survivor battle armor would have been his first choice. Li Yunmu, what are you standing there for? You must know that this survivor battle armor is equivalent to a second life for people like you. Seeing that Li Yunmu hadn't moved, Zhou Jing became very angry. As Lu Nuja's best friend, these past few days, she hated that a person like Li Yunmu was together with Lu Nuja. He neither had strength nor background, only heaven knows why Lu Nuja even talks to him. Why not? They shouldn't be allowed to go to waste. After all, this item was sold in the alliance for a price of 5,000 fourth-dimensional coins. Li Yunmu obviously knew why Zhou Jing didn't like him, but he didn't take the bait. Initially, he didn't want to be too greedy and waste the lucky Wind City Fluxer Guild's resources. But now, since he had been forced by these people, then he wouldn't refuse their kind intentions. He would accept it with a smile. At the worst, if he doesn't need it, then he could just sell it at the market in the real world. It could also be resold for 2,000 to 3,000 fourth-dimensional coins. It must be known that this many fourth-dimensional coins weren't a small figure and were basically equivalent to the yearly expenses of an ordinary family. Soon, he moved forward to pick a survivor battle armor and also picked a war blade as a weapon from another suitcase. This war blade clearly couldn't compare to the war blade given by his father, which was made of titanium alloyed steel. Although it was only made of a gold and steel alloy, as a war blade which was mainly made of steel, it was still quite durable. Even if it could only be used to deal with some low-level dimensional beast, that was sufficient for him. Most of the people excitedly received their equipment and began to rub their fists in anticipation for these 2 days to pass. All of them believed that this was a holiday trip outside the Cloud Castle for new Fluxers, but they didn't realize this was everyone's first time fighting in the wilderness in the 5th dimension. Because Li Yunmu's father had been stationed at frontline camp, he was aware of the dangers and cruelty of the wilderness. Thus, after receiving the equipment, he didn't stay to talk with these lunatics, neither did he go to the library that evening. He began to prepare for his first trip. After entering the 5th dimension, he hadn't started leveling with the H.A.C.K system because he was busy acquiring knowledge about the 5th dimension. Originally, he wanted to become familiar with his surroundings before carefully choosing a H.A.C.K location for the H.A.C system, but now, he didn't have the time to slowly prepare. Ding, starting the Supreme Shadow hack system, automatically choosing the previous hack location, District Garden. Ding, District Garden hack location does not exist anymore, detecting the transformation in host's world, the system will upgrade the old map with a new one. The time required for the upgrade to complete is 38 hours 56 minutes 17 seconds, requesting patience from the host. What? The system is upgrading again? And the time required this time around is so long. Li Yunmyu was startled. He checked once again and only then did he manage to remember that he wasn't at Lucky Wind City anymore, rather, he had now entered the special realm of the fifth dimension. But wouldn't this newly upgraded system's hack map cover the entire fifth dimension? Once he thought of this, Li Yunmyu didn't dare to think about it anymore. Only, the time required to upgrade the map last time simply paled in comparison the time needed this time, approaching close to 39 hours. My god, wasn't that almost 2 days? Ah, Li Yunmyu finally realized that rushing to increase the level of his Admiralty cover and copper body secrets before he started his journey outside wasn't possible. After realizing this, he didn't do anything else and had a good rest. The next day, he woke up early and discovered that all the fellow students in the little courtyard were excitedly preparing for their first cultivation journey outside. Hey friend, we were preparing to go to the Fluxer Guild Coalition, do you want to come along? Li Yunmyu had barely stepped out of his cabin when an anxious-looking male student took the initiative to greet him. Li Yunmyu looked at the precocious boy who clearly hadn't become 17 years old yet but looked like a 30-years-old uncle. He left a very deep impression. Not to mention others, just his matured and aged face would certainly leave an impression on anyone who saw it the first time. He remembered that this precocious young male was called Zhang Daksheng, everyone loved to call him Big Shuang. Apart from his face, his body also had a large stature. He appeared to be very crude and came from 8th high school, so he wasn't much better than Li Yunmyu who had come from 16th high school. He was also one of the leftover weaklings who had mocked him. You know me? Li Yunmyu was startled, he couldn't believe his ear. Today, these people had surprisingly taken the initiative to invite him. Naturally, apart from us elder brothers and you, who else is there? An elder brother mischievously smiled and walked towards him, he then patted Li Yunmyu's shoulder to show his goodwill. Why are you going to Fluxer Guild Coalition? Li Yunmyu didn't pay attention to these people, but the mysterious expression on the face of Big Shuang and other two evoked his curiosity. Since he could not use the hack machine and also wasn't in the mood to go to the library to cram additional knowledge. So at this moment, Li Yunmyu was absolutely bored, he wasn't afraid of anything except the fear of the pain of staying idle. The fuck, you don't even know this? Naturally, we are going to receive missions. We want to use the opportunity of going out tomorrow to complete some missions and gain some contribution points, earning a big profit. Big Shuang raised his heavy fist and waved them excitedly. That's right, I heard that after becoming Flux disciples, the quickest way to earn money is to complete missions. As long as we succeed in completing it, then our future generations won't have to worry about money. The fellow student wearing glasses that was standing alongside also nodded his head to confirm. Yes, how about forming a battle squad? Yesterday, I asked around and found out that Luo Jin, that arrogant guy, had already formed his battle squad and after going out of the castle tomorrow, they will abandon us to our own fate. However, our big bear squad cannot fall behind, if you join us, then we will only need to find one more person. The third student used the opportunity to invite Li Yunmyu. Li Yunmyu couldn't endure seeing at the third student's wretched face anymore. Just by looking the crooked teeth protruding out, it seemed as if a strong punch had landed his face. One was Big Shuang, another was the thin glass-wearing boy and the final one was the crooked teeth male. What the fuck, this assembly of weirdos had surprisingly taken fancy to him. Li Yunmyu didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. What could he say, although he didn't look particularly handsome, in the end, his stature was according to the norm, his facial features were outlined clearly, making him worthy of a second look. God knows why these weirdos thought that he was similar to them. Puff. Li Yunmu almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. He now understood everything. Originally, these exotic flowers had been abandoned by Luojin and the others, and they now wanted him to enter to make up for the number. With these people greeting him and cordially inviting him to join them, no wonder it seemed like the sun rose from the west. Chapter 22, Money is Everything. Translator, Mercurial Editor, The Real Seal. So are you coming or not? Big Shuang saw the dull expression on Li Yunmu's face and anxiously asked. Sure, I am coming. No matter what. Li Yunmu spoke like a fly had passed through his throat, only at the end did he return to his normal state and shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Finally, he joined the Big Shuang's battle squad. Although these few people looked like weirdos, now that he had been talking to them, he realized that no one else would invite him to join their squad. The most important thing was that because of the existence of the hack system, rather than joining a demanding person like Luojin, it was better to join this strange battle squad. At least he would be guaranteed a certain amount of freedom, and once he found a satisfactory location, he could get away from this squad and practice solo. Good, very good, ha 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 ha, we have finally gathered 4 people, now, we are only missing 1. Feeling immensely proud about swaying Li Yunmu to join them, all 3 of them began to laugh heartily. Li Yunmu also raised his corner of mouth to give a faint smile. Joining with you all is fine, but I want sufficient freedom. Li Yunmu innocently raised a condition. Ha, freedom? No problem, we Big Bear Battle Squad lack everything but not freedom, you can do whatever you want. Now come, we should go to the Fluxer Guild Coalition to get some missions. The group of 4 quickly used the railway line inside the castle and soon arrived at the center of the Cloud Castle, where the largest and most beautiful building, the Fluxer Guild Coalition, stood. At this moment, the Guild Coalition was packed with new Fluxers from the 136 towns under the supervision of the Cloud Castle. Since most of them had rushed here today, their goal was more or less the same as Big Shuang, to take a mission. But at this moment, the hall was filled with people, moreover, all of them were new Fluxers. If the common residents of Lucky Wind City saw this scene, they would be scared to death. Although the probability of completely awakening was very low, when multiplied by the number of people on the entire central continent, it becomes quite substantial. Even the Cloud Castle, which was only one of the 7 secondary grade cities, was filled with a large number of Flux disciples. In the mission hall, there were large screens hanging on all 4 walls that were filled with missions. Furthermore, there were rows of self-servicing machines in the surroundings to help people accept the mission. After careful observation, Li Yunmu soon discovered that all the missions in the hall were divided into 3 categories. First was the joint mission issued by the Central Continent's regime and Fluxer Guild Coalition, which was to clean up the dimensional beasts. This kind of mission was also the simplest mission. Kill 100 ordinary crystal dimensional beasts, obtain 1 Fluxer Guild contribution point. Kill 100 black crystal dimensional beasts, obtain 10 Fluxer Guild contribution points. Kill 100 silver crystal dimensional beasts, obtain 100 Fluxer Guild contribution points. Kill 100 gold crystal dimensional beasts, obtain 1000 Fluxer Guild contribution points. Kill 100 rainbow crystal dimensional beasts, obtain 10,000 Fluxer Guild contribution points. Moreover, all the above 5 missions could be done over and over again. Simply put, government-issued missions were actually just missions to kill dimensional Fluxer were frequently sent to dispose of the dimensional beasts of 5th dimension at irregular times. Otherwise, if their numbers were allowed to grow, they could become a menace to every large mobile steel castle and might even lay siege them. It could even be said that government missions were used to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They allowed the rookie Fluxers to train themselves by fighting, while at the same time, remove the menace of excessive dimensional beasts, creating a kind of equilibrium in the 5th dimension and turning it into a cultivating cradle for human Fluxers. The second type of missions were the monetary reward missions issued by some Fluxer or some local power. They were usually much more complicated than the first type of missions, and all sorts of missions could be found here. From requests to collect the furs and skin of the beasts to some other materials, it had everything. Some people had also requested for the collection of plants of some particular area or even stones and soil, among many other things. However, the reward of the second type of missions wasn't contribution points, but rather, common fourth-dimensional coins. Li Yunmyo casually picked and took a look at a simple mission requesting for the collection of furs and skin of dimensional beast. Immediately, he became speechless. Even this kind of extremely simple mission had a reward of 100 fourth-dimensional coins. Not to mention of the missions with higher difficulty, the reward of a mission which requested the capture of a rainbow crystal-grade beast's cub paid at least several thousand fourth-dimensional coins as a start. No wonder the eyes of Big Shuang and others were shining when they insisted on coming here to take a mission. The third type of missions were high-grade missions about some strange tales. Although the number of missions of this kind was very small, each and every one of them was extremely difficult. Investigating about information of the Netherworld Valley? 5 fifth-dimensional coins and 500 contribution points? Sure enough, just a mission about investigating some information could get you 5 fifth-dimensional coins and several hundred contribution points. Fifth-dimensional coins, although it was only paying very few of those. What were fifth-dimensional coins? That was the currency used by the most powerful people. Ordinary people couldn't even hope to come in contact with them. Even new fluxers like Li Yunmyo didn't have much access to them for the time being. 1 fifth-dimensional coin was equal to 10,000 fourth-dimensional coins. This vast difference was the reason why fifth-dimensional coins were something that the fourth-dimensional coins couldn't even compare to. Brother Thin, what is the use of these contribution points? Compared to people like Big Shuang, Li Yunmyo's experience was like comparing a grown man to a child. Although he had learned a great deal in the past few days, there was much he still didn't know. These contribution points are very good things. It is even more precious than fourth-dimensional coins. It also has many great uses. If we want some flux battle skills, then they cannot be purchased without contribution points. Moreover, if you urgently need some money, then you can also exchange the contribution points for fourth-dimensional coins. 1 contribution point is equivalent to 1,000 fourth-dimensional coins, so you tell me, aren't they good? The glasses-wearing thin boy adjusted his glasses and said with a fascinated expression on his face. Brother Thin forgot to add 1 point. If you accumulate 10,000 contribution points, then you can gain the right to live in a primary city of Central Continent and gain many other privileges and catch the eyes of many people. If you can get 1 million contribution points, then you will obtain the rights to enter the War God Hall and participate in the purchase of sacred spirit skills. The crooked teeth male supplemented from the other side. Sacred spirit skills. Li Yunmyo was completely shocked. As a citizen of the Central Continent, who didn't know about the War God Temple and that above the War God Temple was the War Spirit Temple, which was the most formidable military organization on the Central Continent with no match. As for sacred spirit skills that frightened people even more, according to legend, they were different from the common grade battle skills and cultivation methods circulated by the Fluxer Guild. Like its name implies, it was a sacred skill, a godly technique. Only the most powerful and influential people and clans of the Central Continent could access these sacred spirit skills. Ordinary people and even ordinary Fluxers have no way to access them. But now, this crooked teeth person was saying that they could be accessed by using contribution points. Although it requires 1 million contribution points, it was the only way to gain access to sacred spirit skills. Then what are we waiting for? Let's accept a mission. Li Yunmyo couldn't remain calm after hearing all this. Although he hadn't killed dimensional beasts before, he now knew that killing an ordinary dimensional beast was equivalent to 100 fourth-dimensional coins. Killing 5 was equal to his father's previous monthly salary, and it could gain him even more privileges. Only a fool could remain calm after hearing this. Everyone says that once you become a Fluxer, your wealth could rival the entire city. Although these lines were somewhat exaggerated, they were not that exaggerated. Even a flux disciple could make money so fucking easily. Chapter 23, Bye. After registering for the mission, Li Yunmu went to the Fluxer Guild's Battle Skill Hall, where he saw the flux methods and battle skills provided by the Fluxer Guild for the first time. After careful comparison, he quickly discovered that the flux methods and battle skills provided by the Alliance are relatively ordinary and were quite inferior to his Admiralty cover and copper body secrets. Only B-grade flux methods and battle skills could be said to be pleasing to his eyes. Flux rotating method, D-grade flux skill. The method is used to rotate the flux energy within his body in a unique way. It is a projectile-type battle skills which shoots out the flux energy which was involved in the rotation. Minimum requirements of cultivating it requires the opening of 8 ordinary crystal flux points passing through both arms and both legs. Requires 7 contribution points. Devil Tiger Fierce Explosion Fist, B-grade flux method. Cultivating the Devil Tiger Fierce Explosion Fist will allow both fists to possess the shocking strength of the Devil Tiger Beast and also contain explosive flux energy. Minimum requirement of cultivation: opening of 17 silver crystal flux points in both hands and chest, requires 300 contribution points. Flash Step, C-grade flux method, footwork especially used for frequent dodging. Minimum requirements of cultivation requires the 4 ordinary crystal flux points on both legs to be opened, requires 38 contribution points. Iron Bones, B-grade flux method, uses the flux energy to refine all the bones in the body to make them as hard as iron. Minimum requirements of cultivation requires the person be at least a black crystal flux disciple and open 18 black crystal flux points in the whole body, requires 350 contribution points. Dimension Destroying 12 continuous chops, A-grade flux method, chops exploding with great temporary power, which could break the dimensional space. Minimum requirement of cultivation requires the person to be at least an ordinary crystal flux disciple, requires opening all 12 ordinary crystal flux points in the body for better chances of success. It requires a foundation in using a blade or some other chopping type weapon. Requires 1000 contribution points. There were rows and columns filled with all sorts of flux methods and battle skills provided by the Alliance. There were much more here compared to Hack Systems store. Altogether there were several thousand methods. It has to be said that in the 200 or so years that humanity has been practicing with the principle of flux energy being paramount, the improvements in the battle skills and flux methods have been all-inclusive. This allowed the flux culture to enter its most glorious stage. And like the hack systems cultivation methods and battle skills, here also, they were divided into 4 grades: A, B, C, D. The flux methods and battle skills provided by the coalition could only be compared to the effects of practicing, but in fact, they didn't seem one whit inferior to the formidable techniques in the hack system store. However, Li Yunmu could finally make out that these flux methods and battle skills had formidable base power, but they become lacking in strength later on. They did not have sufficient potential for development. Simply speaking, for example, the copper body secrets cultivated by Li Yunmu. By cultivating this method, Li Yunmu's skin experiences a qualitative transformation every 10 levels. By the time he reaches the 50th level, the defense of the B-grade cultivation method would have experienced 5 transformations. Starting from the copper body, reaching the iron body, then silver body, then golden body, then finally heavenly golden body. By the time he cultivates it to the peak, his defense would be simply astonishing. What about the coalition's B-grade flux method Iron Bones? Even after practicing it to the limit, the best result was still only having iron bones. Its potential had been doomed long ago. What made him even angrier was that it still had a lot of cultivating restrictions and requirements. It also required him to pay a lot of contribution points. However, it wasn't like the coalition's flux methods and battle skills didn't have any merits. The initial effects of cultivating these skills were very formidable and provided greater explosive power and formidable strength compared to the system's cultivation methods and battle skills. This cultivation system showed its effects earlier. After searching for a long time, Li Yunmu found 2 flux methods which made his heart beat faster. He didn't have any hopes to use the B-grade iron bones for the time being, but there was a C-grade and B-grade flux method whose cultivation requirements were low, only requiring him to be at the ordinary crystal flux disciple level. The B-grade skill was called Earth Dragon's Strength. Its cultivation threshold was very low. If he cultivates it, his fleshly body would possess the power of an Earth Dragon. Even the term tremendous strength wasn't enough, it was even more extreme. Just perfect for Li Yunmu to mend the rare weak point in his strength. It must be known that power was another kind of defense. If he doesn't have formidable power as his foundation, then even if he has an astonishing defense, the enemy could just attack and flee or perhaps repel him back, thus making his defense completely useless. Hence, this Earth Dragon's strength could both patch the leak in Li Yunmu's defenses and also increase his offensive potential greatly, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So he couldn't help but feel excited. This cultivation method Earth Dragon's strength required 180 contribution points. Li Yunmu secretly remembered it. Obtaining this large amount of contribution points was just an extravagant hope for new fluxers. But he had the supreme shadow hack system. As long as he continues to hack day after day, night after night, then even if he only gains small success each time, the final accumulation of contribution points would be tremendous. Hehe. Another C-grade cultivation method which made him excited was a defensive type flux method, which causes the flux energy to congeal around the 5 viscera and 6 bowels in his body. After cultivating to a high degree, it could be used to strengthen and defend the location of his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. Even the Admiralty cover and copper body secrets didn't provide him with that kind of security. Moreover, he only needed to open 3 ordinary crystal flux points in his chest and abdomen and pay 70 contribution points to cultivate this internal organ protecting skill, quite cheap indeed. Li Yunmu secretly made a note of this too. If he could accumulate sufficient contribution points, then he must definitely get this flux method. It was a must-have. If he got to cultivate both these cultivation methods, then his defenses would be without any loopholes. After that, the Fluxer Guild coalition didn't have any other nice things to see, so Big Shuang and the others went to find the services of an artificial intelligence in the form of a girl, and after paying 1,000 fourth-dimensional coins, they founded the Big Bear Battle Squad. Li Yunmu didn't break his promise. After interacting with these people for the entire morning, he discovered that Big Shuang and his group of 3 people were quite honest and had a good moral standing. At least compared to hypocrites like Luo Jin, Zhou Jing, they were much better. Now that he had entered the Big Bear Battle Squad, within a split second, he received frank treatment from the 3 people. Not to speak of other things, he also received the catchphrase of Big Shuang on the lines of loyalty and brotherhood. My father lacks many things, but the only thing he doesn't lack is money. Well said, indeed, birds of the same feather flock together, only people divide themselves. Not a long time had passed before, Li Yunmu surprisingly discovered that this Big Shuang was an absolutely nouveau riche. His father was the richest person of Lucky Wind City, whose name was Li Daxiang. Li Daxiang I and Li Daxiang II, the names of these 2 father and son were exotic, tch. This also could be considered as another type of inheritance. Not only was Big Shuang a silk pants, even the brother Thin and Crooked Teeth Jiang were the sons of businessmen. Their families were large landlords, each more wealthy than the other. These 3 silk pants had come to the Fluxer Coalition not to do missions to make money, but rather, to increase their contribution points. After all, in the present world, flux energy was considered supreme. Being rich couldn't be considered a privilege anymore. Thus, Big Shuang and his 2 friends wouldn't miss the chance to increase their influence. Haha, all the missions that had any relation to contribution points have been accepted. Oh, are we missing something? Their party walked out from the coalition's office laughing loudly when suddenly, Big Shuang slapped his head. There is something we are missing. We are lacking a war chariot. Having a vehicle is much more efficient. We must purchase one. Chapter 24, Just One Word Rich. Welcome to the Motorized War Chariot Company, I am Qing Zi, serial number 0168, it is a privilege to serve you lords. Li Yunmu entered a motorized war chariot trading company for the first time. There was also one outside Lucky Wind City, but regardless of whether it was the grade or the amount, the Lucky Wind City's trading company was much inferior to this one. However, even if the scope of that locomotive war chariot trading company was inferior, it was still not a place that the former Li Yunmu could enter. Because, although the difference between war chariots and car trains was only of one character, the difference between their price was as high as the difference between as heaven and earth. The quality and extent of this war chariot trading company of Cloud Castle was even higher. As far as the eye could see, the entire exhibition hall of the trading company was filled with different types, model numbers, and designs of motorized war chariots. Among them, the lowest type of war chariot had a starting price of 100,000 fourth-dimensional coins. Among the differences between car trains and war chariots, the main one was vehicle armor. The car train didn't have any while the war chariot did. Therefore, all the private vehicles going out of the cities were war chariots. As for car trains, they could only be used for travel within the city safely. Both of them didn't have anything to be compared on apart from the main difference. The price of a war chariot was 10 or maybe 100 times more than the price of a car train. Another important characteristic was its endurance and resistance. In the wilderness of the New Age, if your vehicle has many defects and frequently breaks down, then congratulations to you, you're screwed. The longer you stay in the wilderness, the higher your chances of death becomes. Thus, another feature of the motorized war chariots was that they were of far higher quality and far more sturdy compared to car trains. From something as small as a thumb-sized screw to something as important as the engine, as long as it wasn't severely attacked, then the war chariot itself wouldn't break down. Even if some small malfunctions appear, it wouldn't be major enough to affect normal travel. Thus, the war chariots of this age could only be enjoyed by the wealthiest and most powerful people. Not even those who were just rich could enjoy them. As the son of the richest man of Lucky Wind City, Big Shuang naturally had the capacity to purchase a war chariot. But even then, he didn't have many choices to pick from, as the price of war chariots of relatively higher grade weren't something a person like him, who was the son of the richest person of only a small town, could afford. After all was said and done, he was only the son of the richest person of a small town, that's all. After strolling about for a long time, Big Shuang finally stopped in front of a two-wheeled motorized war chariot. All right, this is the one. Once Li Yunmu glanced at the price, he immediately took a deep breath. Your mother, he had really underestimated this person's old man. Evidently, in order to facilitate his cultivation, Big Shuang had chosen a motorized war chariot with a price of 300,000 fourth-dimensional coins. How much does 300,000 fourth-dimensional coins represent? He couldn't even imagine. Even the general price of a piece of land in Lucky Wind City was only 500 fourth-dimensional coins for 1 square m. These 300,000 fourth-dimensional coins were sufficient for him to purchase a piece of land with an area of 600 square m. How large was an area of 600 square m? Large, extremely large. Nowadays, the wilderness had been occupied by variation and dimensional beasts. The space for private residences in the city had become extremely cramped. If the 600 square m of land was used to make a multi-story residential building, then it could easily house over 1,000 people. So it could be clearly imagined how enormous this sum of money was. Within half an hour, the four of them came out of the trading company while sitting in a vehicle known as Delta Thunder God TX-12 all-terrain war chariot and began to travel on the main street. This Delta Thunder God war chariot belonged to the 12th generation. Even in a city filled with fluxers, it was very flashy and eye-catching, enough to suck in the eyeballs of all the pedestrians. The shape of this war chariot was quite the same as the cross-country locomotives used before the ancient Dark Ages. This car-shaped vehicle had a length of 7 meters. There were huge battle wheels at the front and back with a diameter of 5 meters and a thickness of half a meter. The rim was full of spikes, providing it with incredible traction while increasing its defense explosively. It also possessed the ability to automatically inflate and was extremely heat resistant. There were several thousand independent spores allocated on the inside of the wheel, so even if hundreds of steel nails were hammered into the wheels, the independent inflating pores would make sure that the war chariot's driving equilibrium wasn't affected. The vehicle armor with a deep silver metal luster ensured that it could resist the attacks from an 18mm caliber cannon and also the attacks from a gold crystal dimensional beast, no need to speak about its shock absorption and suspension system. Traveling on mountains or any other uneven ground with it was like going for a picnic. After opening the war chariot's vehicle armor, the scenery of the wilderness could be properly enjoyed. After closing the vehicle armor, it could travel on both land and water. The name, All-Terrain War Chariot, wasn't simply bragging. The whole body of the motorized war chariot had 5 seats, in the front was the cabin from where it could be controlled, behind it were 2 rows of 2 seats, just perfect to hold 5 people. Seeing that Big Shuang had brought it so that it could be used as a stronghold where he could cultivate while outside, not only did he stake his all, he also needed his old man to support him extensively, or else he wouldn't have bought this war chariot, which would even make his family bleed money. Haha, with this war chariot, after returning back, maybe a beautiful girl could be pulled to joining our squad. Sitting in the second row, Crooked Teeth Jiang had already begun to fantasize. Yes. Li Yunmu had now calmed down. Presently, he had realized what kind of freak's war chariot he had entered. Maybe their strength was not good, but they were willing to part with a large sum of money. Next, the 4 of them opened the vehicle armor and used the flashy war chariot to loiter on the main street for half a day. After satisfying their huge egos, they began to purchase other items to prepare for cultivating outside. Ford X3 type battlefield tent, bought. Small portable water purifier, bought. Hemostatic bandages and hemostatic spray medicines, bought. 1 to 37 types of fast-acting blood serums and so on, bought. In short, after the Crooked Tooth Jiang and Brother Thin joined the preparations, the only movement this battle squad made was to buy. The things they bought weren't things which ordinary people would consume in normal times. While the Big Bear battle squad was still wantonly purchasing goods in the Cloud Castle, the other students of Maple Forest Little Courtyard had already entered the final step, to make arrangements for forming squads. The information scouted out by Big Shuang and them previously were correct. Luo Jin, Ho Wu, Zhou Jing, Lu Nuja and 3 others of the same level had formed an independent squad. Their strength could certainly be considered as top-ranked in this newly arrived group from Lucky Wind City. The cultivation of these 7 people was the highest among Fluxers who had arrived from Lucky Wind City this time. It needn't be said that Luojin was the only one who had reached Silver Crystal Flux Disciple. Ho Wu, Zhou Jing, and others had also reached Black Crystal Flux Disciples. Their goal during this journey outside was to kill even higher level dimensional beasts. I don't feel this arrangement is very good. If we, the strongest 7, travel together, then the other weak fellow students may suffer from dangers. Lu Nuja was the only member of the 7-member squad who opposed this. She didn't approve of Luojin's extreme thinking. Chapter 25, Getting Scammed. Nuja, Luojin's suggestion is pretty good. If the 7 of us are scattered and join different battle squads, the accomplishments of the whole Lucky Wind City may decrease. You should understand that we are not only representing ourselves but also representing Lucky Wind City. A lot is expected from us. You must pay attention to the bigger picture. Ho Wu urged her. That's right. Moreover, we cannot always abandon our cultivation schedule to protect them. The aim of the other fellow students are ordinary crystal dimensional beast, which is neither useful for our practice nor can we reap any benefits from it. The Great Lama River Zone chosen by the Alliance is the most suitable place for new cultivators to gain experience. If we join them, it may influence their progress. Another member of the battle squad persuaded her. What about Li Yunmu? He had recently awakened and belongs to the 16th High School. I am afraid that he might not be able to join any battle squads. Lu Nuja voiced her concern. Haha, you really are a good person. Early today, I saw him entering Big Xiang's battle squad, all of them seemed to be on good terms with him. Zhou Jing laughed. Good, that settles everything. This year, we must secure a good position for our lucky Wind City. Initially, Luo Jin's mood was pretty good, but now, after hearing Lu Nuzhi mention Li Yunmu's name, his complexion immediately turned gloomy. He, Zhou Jing and others couldn't understand why Lu Nuzhi cared so much about a youngster, but since that man had already entered Big Xiang's weak squad, Lu Nuzhi now had no reason to oppose joining them. Rumble, rumble rumble. When Big Xiang's small squad drove the Delta Thunder God War Chariot and entered the small courtyard, Li Yunmu discovered that the heavyweight, Luo Jin, was not the only one that formed his own squad. His other fellow students had also established their own battle squads. Junior sister, we still have a vacant slot remaining. You see. This is the Thunder God War Chariot. Using it, our efficiency in killing dimensional beasts will certainly be far higher compared to the randomly formed squad that you have joined. Haha, forget about it. What is the use of this war chariot? You should take a look at your own strength. The war chariot also cannot help your weak squad kill dimensional beasts. If you can't even defeat the dimensional beast, it would all be in vain. Hey, friend. Yeah, you, good friend, does your battle squad have a war chariot? If not, then why don't you join my Big Bear battle squad? Our squad has this Thunder God War Chariot in addition to a Ford X3 type battle tent, so you don't have to worry about your safety when outside and can cultivate properly. What are you trying to do? I am going out on this journey to improve myself by practicing, not like you bunch who are just going on a holiday. You can have fun by yourself but don't bother me. When Big Xiang and his two friends were trying to dupe people into joining their squad, Li Yunmu was completely stupefied. Just what kind of problems does this Big Bear battle squad have? What use was the war chariot, battle tent, and other advanced products, which was prepared after spending lot of money, when not a single person was willing to join them? Haha, Li Yunmu, aren't you completely stunned? Do you think that everyone doesn't know about the material benefits offered by Big Xiang's battle squad? And why no one is willing to join them even if they knew? Do you want to know the reason? Finally, one male student couldn't control himself and said to Li Yunmu while laughing. What's the reason? Li Yunmu had a bad premonition, feeling as if he had been conned. That is because Big Xiang and his friends awakened by throwing money. Soon, this good-intentioned fellow student told him the main reason. However, Li Yunmu was completely stunned after hearing this reason. All of them became Flux disciples by spending money on dimensional crystals. Damn it, not even one of them had naturally awakened? Now, he finally realized how weak the battle squad he had entered was. No wonder Big Xiang and his friends were throwing so much money on purchasing the best of technology. They simply had no confidence in themselves. A naturally awakened and those who used dimensional crystals to awaken. Although both of them awaken as Flux disciples, there was a major difference between the both of them. The difference in the flux power between both sides was not just the quality. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 was the maximum limit of flux power strength which anyone could display, naturally awakened Flux disciples could reach at least 8 or 9 points of flux power strength. Then what about Flux disciples who awakened by throwing money? They could at most display 5 or 6 points of flux power strength. This difference was not your average difference, mother effer, this bro has been scammed. Li Yunmu immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. Seeing that the sky hadn't turned dark yet, he made another trip to the center of the castle. But this time, he didn't go together with Big Xiang and friends, rather, he went on his own. The first thing he did was to sell the survivor battle armor to 2 dealers for 3,500 fourth dimensional coins. Adding the above amount with the few hundred fourth dimensional coins he had on him and the salary of 1,000 fourth dimensional coins paid by the Alliance, he had around 5,000 fourth dimensional coins in total. Next thing he did was to purchase a portable water purifier, although it couldn't compare to the more advanced and powerful purifier purchased by Big Xiang earlier today. it could certainly preserve as the source of drinking water for one person without any problem. Then, he bought a battle tent, which only had the most common warning trap, and also couldn't be compared to the fort-type tent made of alloyed materials purchased by Big Shuang. Although it doesn't offer great defense, it would allow him to survive at a temperature of -50 degrees. Li Yunmu spent the most of his leftover wealth on purchasing medicaments like hemostatic bandages, antiseptic and detoxifying medicines and other such things which were absolutely essential. Ultimately, after purchasing all these things, he was left with a pitiful amount of 100 fourth-dimensional coins. Only after purchasing all these things did Li Yunmu feel relieved. These survival tools would ensure that he could survive in the event that his squad scatters. Sure enough, Li Yunmu had already planned for the worst-case scenario of Big Xiang's battle squad collapsing. Naturally, he won't be selfish as to leave them at the last moment, even if he knew that the other party weren't reliable. Even leaving out the above-mentioned fact, Big Xiang and his friends had shown him great hospitality today compared to the others. The night silently passed. Early in the morning the next day, the whole maple forest small courtyard was bustling with activity. If nothing unexpected happens, then the Cloud Castle would stop at the Lamo River Zone today. When everyone had assembled in the little courtyard, Li Yunmu discovered that all 27 people had split into 4 battle squads. Everyone had taken their position with their own battle squad, clearly marking the boundaries. Luojin's 7-people battle squad was considered the most powerful battle squad, carrying the hopes of many. They were called the Lucky Wind City Battle Squad, with the intention of showing that they represented Lucky Wind City here. The team leader was naturally Luojin himself, but upon seeing the vice leader, Li Yunmu was slightly startled. Unexpectedly, it was Lu Nuja. Chapter 26, Ling Shuang. Until now, Li Yunmu didn't know why this beautiful girl, Lu Nuja, treated him so favorably. He couldn't naively believe that it was because she had fallen for him at first sight. Similarly, he couldn't understand what kind of background Lu Nuja had, which made Luojin, this proud son of heaven, attach so much importance to her and even chase after her so zealously. Could it be because her voice was so sweet and that she was beautiful? Or was it because of her strength? If strength was the reason, then the vice leader should have been Ho Wu. Li Yunmu could clearly see that Luonuja's flux energy wasn't that strong and she had only reached the initial second layer. Apart from them, the second most powerful battle squad was formed of 9 males and 2 females, a total of 11 students, and was called Lucky Star Battle Squad. All the 11 students had already taken half a step past the first layer of ordinary crystal flux disciple. When they could form their ordinary crystal battle armor, they would immediately enter the second layer. The squad leader was a female known as Li Zi. She was an extremely beautiful woman with long legs, and among the batch of new fluxers, she could be considered as the prettiest. Her beauty was a grade above Li Yunmu's childhood friend, Lin Li. As for Lu Nuja, honestly speaking, her temperament wasn't like that of a beautiful girl, rather, it was like a cute and sweet girl, which made everyone feel comfortable around her. Comparing both types was very difficult. The third battle squad was an all-women battle squad. Altogether, there were 5 people. This battle squad was called Phoenix Battle Squad. Good name. Li Yunmu didn't feel any ridicule towards it. The leader of the squad was Zhang Ying, who had entered the second layer and became a black crystal flux disciple. As for the other 4 girls, their strength was almost the same as Li Yunmu. All of them had only recently awakened and had mediocre strength. As for the 4th battle squad, it was the one and only Big Bear Battle Squad, comprising of only Big Xiang, Brother Thin, Crooked Teeth Jiang and Li Yunmu, 4 people. The rules regarding going out required a squad to have at least 5 people, so they were currently missing 1. Big Xiang, your squad doesn't seem to have enough people, and without the required members, you cannot go out of the castle. When all was said and done, they were all from the same small city and had some sense of belonging and solidarity towards each other. Although they would compete by mocking each other, but at crucial time, Everyone became anxious. Why don't you four break up into two groups and enter either the Phoenix Battle Squad or the Lucky Star Battle Squad? Humph, who said my Big Bear Battle Squad doesn't have enough people, there. The last member just arrived. Big Xiang and Crooked Teeth Jiang suddenly turned red and focused their gaze outside the courtyard. This is external help. Is this okay? Wow, this older sister looks so beautiful. Not only is she beautiful, she is also seems very cold. Who is she? Cough cough, I know her. She resembles the top student of the second high school of the neighboring Fenghua city. What was her name? Oh, that's right, it was Ling Shuang. Instantly, all the fellow students of the little courtyard were attracted to the cold and beautiful girl invited by Big Xiang at the last moment. Lucky Wind City's neighbor, Fenghua City, in terms of strength, their rank was 60 positions higher than Lucky Wind City. Among the 136 cities under the control of Heavenly Cloud City, their strength belonged to the middle and their quality was much higher. Although this girl called Ling Shuang was only the top student of Fenghua City's second high school, most of the people present here had heard of her famous name. There wasn't much difference between her battle strength and Lucky Wind City's chief representative Luo Jin. How is it? Awesome, right? Who said my Big Bear Battle Squad doesn't have enough people? Big Xiang heartily laughed and went outside to welcome her with his friends. Holy S.H.A.D.W, Big Bear Battle Squad has invited outside help so brazenly, isn't this a violation of the rules? This isn't acceptable, wouldn't it imply that Lucky Wind City is a cheater? Nonsense, who said we invited outside help? My elder sister has already become a member of our Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard. Brother Thin said, astounding everyone. Your elder sister? Ling Shuang is your elder sister? When did she leave Fenghua Courtyard and became a member of our Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard? Even people like Luojin and Hou were completely shocked in their heart. Just now. After greeting Big Xiang and his friends, Ling Shuang coldly walked past them and casually revealed the Fluxer badge, which had changed to the mark representing Lucky Wind City. Initially, no one had expected that yesterday, when Big Xiang couldn't find the final person for his battle squad, Four-Eyed Brother Thin surprisingly invited his elder sister. She didn't get along with her father ever since she was young and later directly left her family and shifted to a neighboring city to live. Thus, not many people knew that Ling Shuang and the Four-Eyed Brother Thin were step-siblings. His elder sister had great influence, her innate talent was even higher than Luo Jin. Although she was only a Black Crystal Flux disciple right now, some time ago, she had caught the eye of a formidable Fluxer who had accepted her as a disciple. She had already studied 2 formidable battle skills and her battle strength couldn't be considered to be lower than Luo Jin. If Luo Jin's father hadn't been a Flux master, then maybe his cultivation wouldn't have been able to match this cold woman that was in front of them. Li Yunmu was also startled, this kind of twist was completely out of his expectation. He didn't dare to believe that Four-Eyed Brother Thin, this ugly joker, would surprisingly have such a beautiful and cold elder sister. With the arrival of Ling Shuang, even Li Ziyi, who was previously considered as the most beautiful, couldn't compare to her. Be it good looks, innate talent, strength, or background, Li Ziyi couldn't compare to her in any of these fields. Haha, so what if you enter their battle squad? A trash battle squad would still be trash. Even if God himself assisted these 4 trashes, he may not be able to endure for long. Hou, who was unfamiliar with Ling Shuang's cold nature, sneered towards Li Yunmu, Big Xiang, and the others. However, his words were also true. The strength of the Lucky Wind City battle squad was the strongest. With Luojin leading this team, even with Ling Shuang's arrival, it was difficult to shake his authority. As for people like Li Yunmu, they were clearly considered as pieces of trash to him. Li Yunmu massaged the space between his brows, feeling a little headache. Vu, some people, why were they so fond of jumping around? Regardless of their strength, they would be elated to jump around all the time. However, he couldn't be bothered with him. He knew that he clearly had no background, and if he couldn't bear with it now and showed all his cards, then he might not be able to keep the existence of the hack machine a secret. On the contrary, Ling Shuang coming over had made his eyes shine brightly. Getting a master? Indeed, if he could apprentice himself to a formidable fluxer, then the Admiralty cover, copper body secrets, insect step, and all his flux method battle skills would gain a justifiable source. In this instant, Li Yunmu finally found a way to protect his flux method battle skills. I don't really care about becoming the chief of your little Lucky Wind City. After this trip is over, I will be returning back. Ling Shuang coldly replied to Ho Wu. Under her ice-cold gaze, Ho Wu gradually began to avoid her line of sight. This was the first time that Li Yunmu had seen the strong-willed Ho Wu surprisingly being forced to back down under another person's gaze. Interesting, truly interesting. Finally, Li Yunmu felt relieved. With this beautiful girl here, he wouldn't have to play nanny and could quietly follow behind their ranks. He could work hard and slack off as he please. With his lazy temperament, he naturally does not want to exert himself. As for becoming the chief representative, to hell with it. Just like how Ling Shuang didn't care about the position of chief representative of this trifling Lucky Wind City, Li Yunmu also didn't put this position in his eyes. With the hack machine, this elder bro was bound to stand at the peak of this hierarchy. As for the position of chief representative of fresh talents of a small city, who the H.A.C.K cared. Having this authority was quite inferior to spending more time with the hack machine to practice killing monsters. Thinking of the hack machine, Li Yunmu immediately thought of the time remaining for the system to update the locations. There were about 8 hours left, in other words, after 8 more hours, he would be able to kill monsters in the 5th dimension? Even if there had only been a trace of the possibility of this being true, Li Yunmu was unable to suppress the excitement in his heart. He was looking forward to it with great expectations. Chapter 27, Big Bear Battle Squad Seeking Death. Rumble. Heavenly Cloud City's steel castle had 136 transmission gateways in total, with each gateway belonging to one of the cities under its control. When every one of the Cloud Castle simultaneously sensed a firm jolt in the whole Cloud Castle, they understood that after traveling in the sky for months, the Cloud Castle has finally stopped temporarily on the ground. I heard that the reason for stopping this time is for newly awakened fluxers to gain experience. Yet, time sure passes very quickly. 1 year has passed in the blink of an eye. I wonder whether our Cloud Castle has produced any exceptional talents this year. Haha, I am from Darkside City. I don't know about exceptional geniuses from other cities, but my Darkside City has Wang Ming this year. His talent and strength would certainly be considered among the top 5 within the new fluxers for this year's Heavenly Cloud City. Holy S.H.A.D.W, your Darkside City always produces someone who lands in the top 10. I hope my Bright Rainbow City also produces someone who can render good military achievements. The residents of the Cloud Castle discussed and sighed with hope in their hearts. They knew that from the instant the Cloud Castle stopped on the ground, the once-a-year ranking of cities according to the military success of the freshmen would begin. Not only for the 136 cities under Heavenly Cloud City, by chance, all the other 6 secondary cities of the central continent decided to hold the competition for the ranking of the cities under their governance on this day. The ranking of all the cities being governed would determine the support and natural resources supplied to them by the 7 secondary cities. If ranked in front, the small city would obtain more resources and vigorous support from their respective secondary city which was governing them. Obtaining ample support and backing would also affect the treatment and benefits received by that small city. It could also be said that this once-a-year ranking of central continent's small cities would involve the interests of thousands upon thousands of people. Regardless of whether they were ordinary people or fluxers, everyone's benefits were bundled together as a prize. Next, the massive hangars fell heavily on the ground, forming suspension bridges to enter and exit the city. Next instant, all the new Flux disciples of Heavenly Cloud City started off on their journey from every direction of the enormous castle successively and spread out like 10,000 stampeding horses, stepping foot into the wilderness area of the 5th dimension. Meanwhile, behind every city's troops, there was a fist-sized flying eye that was following them. Throughout the whole journey, it was slowly flying behind them, watching each and every movement of the troops from all cities. Even members of Lucky Wind City weren't an exception. Wow, what's this flying tool? It has been observing us this whole time. Many people within the procession, including Li Yunmu, were interested in this little flying tool which has been following them closely. It is Alliance's most advanced invention, the dimensional space eye. Don't look down on its small size, it really takes an immense amount of money to produce one, with its constructing cost surpassing 100 million dimensional coins. Among the group from Lucky Wind City, one rather knowledgeable and handsome male student explained. Holy cow, more than 100 million dimensional coins? Don't tell me it can only be made from the root dimensional stone. Big Shuang, Crooked Teeth Jiang, Brother Thin, and others all exclaimed in succession. Even if they were from wealthy families, upon hearing such a high construction cost, they were completely stunned. More than 100 million dimensional coins, apart from the large families and some formidable people in the Alliance, who could fork out such a large sum. Let alone mention the fact that the Alliance has dispatched one such flying eye for every city among the 136 cities under the governance of Cloud Castle. Your words are correct, this kind of thing can only be made from the original dimensional stone, it can follow us to record us and broadcast it in all the major cities on the central continent. Therefore, you all should control yourself, otherwise, the whole of the central continent will think that the people of our Lucky Wind City are country bumpkins who don't have any etiquette. Ho Wu scoffed and reminded everyone. When everyone learned that since the beginning, every movement made by them was being broadcasted over the entire central continent, they immediately controlled themselves. But Li Yunmu whined in his heart, what was the deal with this surveillance? If this dimensional space eye continues to follow and observe them during the entire journey, how could he use his hack secretly? Fortunately, as he was being anxious about it, he soon discovered that his foresight to enter the Big Bear Battle Squad was an incomparably wise decision. This was because the single-dimensional space eye only observed the Big Bear Battle Squad's Delta Thunder God War Chariot for some time before it focused solely on the Lucky Wind City Battle Squad led by Luo Jin. Clearly, the government had realized that the group representing Lucky Wind City's main battle force was not this Nouveau Riche squad, rather, it was the 7-man group formed of the Lucky Wind City's elites and was led by Luo Jin. Within half a day, these 27 people, divided into 4 groups and entered the wilderness of the Great Lamo River Zone. All of them assembled into a circle with mutual understanding, linking their hands, all of them loudly yelled. Do your best. Immediately, all of them felt their hearts racing for a moment. This time's journey to cultivate outside was not only for the individual to gain experience and cultivate, but also the chance for their hometown to get good rank and fame. The hopes of the entire Lucky Wind City was on the shoulders of these 27 youngsters. Even if there was a lot of internal struggle among them, the moment they set foot in this wasteland, everyone has set aside their grievances, understanding that unity of will was an impregnable stronghold. Good, I hope that we can seize a good rank for Lucky Wind City this year. Let's start now. Luo Jin raised his fist to raise their morale and immediately left with his Lucky Wind City battle squad's 7 people in the direction they had chosen. The direction chosen by them was the drainage basin of Great Lamo River. The direction of Lamo River was also the one where the highest concentration of dimensional beasts and monsters could be found. Moreover, the strength of the monsters also increases as they move closer to the river. Only squads as strong as Luo Jin's battle squad would deliberately choose that location for cultivation. As soon as the Lucky Wind City battle squad led by Luo Jin left, the space eye suspended in the air stayed in place for a few more breaths before following them. When Li Yunmu saw this, he secretly sighed in relief. It was not because his mental tolerance was very weak, but because of the fact that he had lots of secrets on him which couldn't be seen by others. Take care, everyone. Immediately after Luo Jin's battle squad left, Li Ziyi bid her farewell and quickly led her Lucky Star battle squad towards the frozen forest of this wasteland. Tch, although Li Ziyi is beautiful, she doesn't even have Luo Jin's battle strength, and yet she could casually attract a group of powerful knights. It really is the age of good-looking people. Big Shuang couldn't help but comment enviously after seeing Li Ziyi and her group advancing towards the direction of the frozen forest. Hehe, brother Big Shuang, little sister doesn't have a war chariot, so she shall take her leave first. Zhang Ying smiled sweetly and chose the direction of the vast wilderness plains. The Phoenix Battle Squad was formed of 5 women and could be considered as relatively weak. The cultivation location chosen by Zhang Ying could be considered pretty good, as the vast wilderness plains had a comparatively sparse concentration of monsters, perfect for them to gain experience. Let's go, everyone has left and it's time for us to leave too. Seeing that Big Shuang was still in a daze after Zhang Ying sweetly called him brother Big Shuang, Li Yunmiu couldn't help but sternly remind him. Haha, yes, let's go, my dear Thunder God War Chariot, start moving. Seeing the other 3 battle squads moving farther and farther away from them, Big Bear Battle Squad finally started their journey. But Li Yunmiu almost coughed up blood upon seeing that the direction that they were headed in was the most famous location of the Great Lama River Zone, known as the Mountain Ridge. Hey, aren't we moving towards the wrong direction? Don't worry, we are going in the direction that this elder brother has chosen for cultivation. But this seems like the direction for the dwarf witch's territory. Before they came out, Li Yunmiu had especially studied a lot about the Great Lama River Zone, the mountain ridge. Your mother, this could be considered as the most difficult location in Great Lama River Zone. Chapter 28, Cheating. The mountain ridge was occupied by an extremely unique type of monster, which had a huge difference compared to normal monsters. These dwarf witch monsters belonged to the hominin category of monsters. Any monsters that were categorized as hominin monsters had formed a society due to necessity, as well as had a certain amount of wisdom. Usually, these types of monsters loved to gather and survive together. The mountain ridges of the Great Lama River Zone was basically occupied by a large number of dwarf witch tribes. Although they weren't extremely formidable, they absolutely hated humans. Sometimes, they would group together and rush forward, making it certain that even heavens themselves cannot save their target. Now, Big Shuang, this rich kid, surprisingly wants to rush into the territory of the dwarf witch tribe? Li Yunmiu genuinely couldn't decide whether he should exclaim in admiration for Big Shuang being so brave or be afraid of him for being ignorant and fearless. My friend, we have already calculated everything. We have this Thunder God War Chariot as a vehicle, moreover, we also have an expert like my sister, so we can always flee at the first signs of danger. Brother Thin explained while pushing back his spectacles. Yes, the monsters at the Great Lama River Zone are scattered, we have also researched properly, and only this mountain ridge area has dwarf witches. It is the best place to quickly rack up contribution points, as the strength of a single dwarf witch is trash, but they have a large population. Ha ha ha, I can already see contribution points piling in front of us. Crooked Teeth Jiang had already started to daydream. Yeah, right. Li Yunmi rolled his eyes. Since these 3 morons weren't afraid, it didn't make sense for him, who has Admiralty cover and copper body secrets, as well as an entire set of battle soldier equipment in his badge, to be so afraid. After thinking about it, Li Yunmiu instantly calmed down. Moreover, Big Shuang and his friends had also properly researched their facts. A single dwarf witch was very weak and their numbers were abundant. Maybe this really was a paradise where he could kill monsters using the hack machine safely. Li Yunmiu was sitting in the 3rd row of the war chariot. He subconsciously glanced towards Ling Shuang, who's sitting on the side. Ling Shuang acutely sensed his gaze on her and coldly said, "Don't look at me, I can only deal with black crystal grade monsters at most." A trace of helplessness flickered on the face of 4-eyed Brother Thin. He was extremely fearful of his stepsister. Throughout the whole journey, apart from excitedly quarreling with Big Shuang, who was piloting the Thunder God War Chariot, Brother Thin had remained extremely quiet, not daring to talk loudly. Though Crooked Teeth Jiang usually went to the back from time to time to chat with Li Yunmiu, while talking, he would constantly steal a glance at Ling Shuang. The Delta Thunder God war chariot was indeed worthy of belonging to the 12th generation of all-terrain war chariots. Its 2 huge battle wheels passed over all kinds of mountains ridges with extremely quick speed, and within less than half a day, they had entered deep into Lamo River Basin's depths and finally arrived at the mountain ridges. It really is a magnificent mountain. The 5th dimension is huge, which really makes it worth looking forward to. The war chariot carrying 5 people stopped at the hill with a high elevation. All of them were trying their best to survey as far as they could. How large was the 5th dimension? It is said that until now, humanity still doesn't have any specific measurements. In other words, it could be described to be as far as the eye can see. Compared to the real Earth, it was an enormous existence. For a long time, it had been the dream of humanity to conquer the dimensional boundary and gain more layers of survival space for humans. But just after a few generations, these great people discovered that they were too full of themselves. There was a saying in the 5th dimension: killing the endless dimensional beasts eternally, investigating the endlessly extensive boundary eternally. This saying accurately depicted this dimension. The dimensional beasts don't go extinct even after countless of them had been killed. This was because every time they were completely removed, after a certain amount of time passes, these dimensional beasts would appear again. But if they were not killed, then their numbers would certainly grow exponentially. If the number of dimensional beasts in this dimension crosses the limit, then it would also influence the true dimension of the Earth, as the surplus dimensional beasts could pass through the dimensional crevice and reach the Earth. Up till this date, humanity still couldn't find the answer as to what kind of beings these dimensional beasts were and where they came from. But there was a certain fixed rule which everyone knew, and that was, within a dimension, the regulations of the world would only allow beings under a certain level of strength to exist. Organisms with strength that was higher than the limit couldn't enter the dimension, but if some organism with strength surpassing the limit was born, then it would suffer punishment from the dimension itself. For example, the most formidable dimensional beast or monster which could appear in the 5th dimension could be at the rainbow crystal grade at the strongest. Moreover, this also applies to fluxers. In case someone exceeding the strength of a flux disciple enters, then that fluxer would be punished by the dimension. At this moment, the land under Li Yunmu and their feet seemed to have undergone great changes. The mountain ridge wilderness was covered with large trees that intermingled with each other, and the extensively large land doesn't seem to have any signs of humans. The Great Lamo River Zone was indeed a pretty good choice for new fluxers to gain experience. For most of the places, the fluxers wouldn't encounter more than one-dimensional beasts within an 8 to 10 miles radius, except for some specially marked regions. For instance, the mountain ridge where everyone was present right now. Finally, we have reached our destination. Is everyone ready? Our contribution points are waiting for us. Big Xiang loudly laughed and began to throw away the survivor battle armor, followed by Brother Thin. Crooked Chiang also faintly smiled and followed them and removed his survivor battle armor. Then all 3 of them held a small storage badge and took out a silver-colored box from within. This is... Li Yunmu was startled for a moment by the sudden transformation of these people, but very quickly, he became shocked after discovering that Crooked Chiang pushed the handle on the faceplate of the silver base box and activated. Hunter silver base equipment. Li Yunmu blurted. Hee, you actually know about this. Crooked Chiang flashed a wicked smile. Holy effing S.H.A.D.W. When Li Yunmu saw the silver base equipment appear, his heart seemed to have been crushed into 1,000 pieces. How much money did these 3 freaks invest to obtain contribution points? To the extent that it could make people go berserk and cause their hairs to stand up in anger. The manufacturing cost of a low-grade Hunter silver base equipment in the Alliance was around 150,000 dimensional coins. As if sensing Li Yunmu's doubts, Crooked Teeth Chiang complacently raised his head, flinging back his hair and said, "Mine is peak grade, so the manufacturing cost is 450,000 dimensional coins." These words had barely come out of Crooked Teeth Chiang's mouth when he moved the key to activate the base. In an instant, the silver base immediately turned into a ball of liquid quicksilver. Starting from his palms, it spread over his whole body. After several tens of seconds had passed, a whole body of metal armor appeared in front of Li Yunmu, a fully armed soldier, which completely stupefied him in one look. Isn't this cheating? Good God! Now, he finally understood why these three dared to court disaster by entering mountain ridges. He even realized why they had chosen to go to the extent of inviting Ling Shuang to enter their battle squad. The reason for all their actions was to choose the best possible location for cheating. This was only the first day. Was this also allowed? Chapter 29, I also have arms. Did you hear? Rumors have been going around that this year, the Alliance has invented a new product. Apparently, it's called something Space-I. They can finally broadcast the city ranking competitions of other cities. Yes, the dimensional Space-I is created from dimensional stone. This information has already been spread over the entire continent. Is this information true? What the H.A.C.K, you remain scooped up in your house all the time and don't even watch the news. What is not true? Go to any public square, those places where large screens have been set, they are already filled with crowds of people waiting for the dimensional broadcast to come online and reach the Earth. You know, I should also go find a place. The television sets at home are too small for cheering, they can't satisfy the craving. Today was a very special day. The once-a-year city ranking competition, which was directly related to everyone's benefit and any city's honor, started today. In previous years, an ordinary person would only hear about the final rankings after the event was over. But other than hearing about it, everything else was too far from them. But a few days ago, the Central Continent's government publicly announced that the present city ranking competition may be broadcasted if the dimensional broadcast was achieved. Immediately, the entire human race was enlivened. The legendary other dimensions, even the fifth dimension, was something which ordinary people could only hear stories about, but would never be able to personally witness, not even a broadcast. Thus today, everyone who had received the news earlier had laid down all the work on their hands and were waiting to personally witness the legendary other dimensions, as well as see every city's newly awakened kill their way in all directions. Streets, bars, pubs, colleges, any place which had a large screen was already jam-packed with people. Time slowly passed, and as the broadcast finally started, a wave of sounds ranging from bellows of surprise to shrieks of excitement successively echoed all over. The legendary fifth dimension, the legendary city within the sky, the legendary floating steel fortress, the legendary streets filled with fluxers walking around. Every scene in the broadcast was what everyone in the surging crowd yearned for. Lin Li was walking on the street while attentively watching the big screen in the public square and calmly observing the endlessly excited people, thinking that she couldn't be classified as a part of this world. Suddenly, the scene changed. Hey, our Lucky Wind City's battle squads look great. Look at the battle squad in the front, they have a war chariot. Don't start shouting for nothing when you don't know anything, okay? That is a Delta Thunder God TX-12 all-terrain war chariot. It costs 300,000 dimensional coins to make one. It can fly sky high, travel on land and dive underwater. Isn't it frightening? You said what? 300,000 dimensional coins? Aren't you adding 2 extra zeros? I have never seen so much money in my whole life. Fart, haven't you seen the fatty walking in the front? He is the son of the richest person of our Lucky Wind City, and see that four-eyed vulgar man, he is the heir of XX Enterprises, and that little guy with crooked teeth, his family is involved in the business of real estate. For them, 300,000 is nothing. Hey, that last boy looks very normal. I don't know that contestant, however, seeing that beautiful and icily arrogant woman walking by his side, I don't think his background is simple. In any case, this battle squad is formed by nouveau riche, every one of them should have used a fortune to awaken. Haha, brother, you're wrong, his name is Li Yunmu, he is a naturally awakened fluxer and belongs to our 16th high school. Dang, naturally awakened fluxer, excellent. Hearing the name Li Yunmu, Lin Li suddenly lifted her head and gazed at the screen with complex emotions, seeing the man getting farther and farther away from her. Let's go, Ali, you are only 16 years old now, you still have a chance. Maybe next year you will be able to pass the half-awakened Fluxus exam. A girl walking with Lin Li, who clearly knew about Lin Li and Li Yunmu's past relationship, said to comfort her. Yes, I still have the chance, but only to become a half-fluxer. Lin Li said with tired expression, not realizing that a trace of misery appeared on her face. On the flux test day half-month ago, who would have thought that she, who carried the hopes of entire 16th high school, would fail to be selected as a half-fluxer because of lacking a little bit of flux power at the half-fluxer testing machine. In addition, that childhood sweetheart whom she considered to be unworthy of her would become the honor and glory of all students and teachers in one move. Not only that, he would also enter the place she had yearned for all her life and become one of the leading characters watched by countless people on the screen. Ka-cha! Following Crooked Teeth Jiang, Four-Eyed Brother Thin also activated his silver base equipment. Next instant, another soldier equipped with silver base equipment appeared in front of Li Yunmu. Tracker silver base equipment. Li Yunmu's heart fiercely jolted. Haha, now for mine, my friend, can you guess what kind of equipment I am using? An even more dazzling and domineering silver base soldier walked towards him. Terminator? This is Terminator silver base equipment. This time, Li Yunmu couldn't remain calm. Who effing said that Big Bear Battle Squad was useless? Presently, for the first time, he didn't agree. The legendary Terminator silver base equipment, even the lowest grade started from 500,000, but the model that Li Daxiang had equipped was certainly at least high grade or perhaps peak grade. Compared to Crooked Teeth Jiang's Hunter silver base equipment and Brother Thin's Tracker silver base equipment, clearly, Big Xiang's Terminator equipment was the ultimate peak of the silver base series offered by the Alliance, costing 1,500,000 dimensional coins? Wait a minute, it seems like something is missing. Li Yunmu subconsciously said. Yes, the armored soldier silver base equipment is missing. Ling Shuang, who had been silent from the beginning, reminded him. Haha, the armored silver base equipment is here. Put them on, my friend, we will depend on you to be the tank. Big Xiang's voice and laugh sounded especially vulgar coming through the equipped soldier armor. Rumbai. The earth faintly jolted and another silver base box appeared from the storage batch, heavily falling on the ground in front of Li Yunmu. Crap, this armored silver base equipment is prepared for me? They want me to act as a meat shield in the front. Li Yunmu didn't know whether to laugh or cry looking at the three, H.A.C.K, these three idiots aren't as stupid as they seem. Unexpectedly, they wanted him to act as the meat shield. Yet, who told you to fill your dominant class as armored soldier in your profile at the Great Courtyard? So that's what happened. Li Yunmu tried to recall, he had indeed filled his dominant class as heavily armored soldier in his profile when he had just entered the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard. But he had never expected that because of that, these three idiots would surprisingly be interested in him. However, although the armored silver base equipment in front of him was as formidable as it could get, Li Yunmu didn't have the least bit interest towards this cumbersome metal equipment. I will act as the front-line tank, but I won't wear this. Li Yunmu laughed and took out his War God Temple's exclusive equipment chest from his storage badge under the astonished gazes of three idiots and Ling Shuang. H.A.C.K me, War God arms? This is the battle equipment produced by the War God Temple? What are you? Yunmu, don't you come from the 16th high school? These three idiots weren't country bumpkins, they immediately recognized the War God series equipment made by the War God Temple in a glance. Indeed I am, but who told you that people from 16th high school couldn't possess War God arms? Although the defense of my battle soldier equipment is slightly inferior to the armored silver base equipment, its battle strength amplification is much better. Li Yunmu said with a proud expression. Although the construction cost of battle soldier equipment was only 50,000 dimensional coins, it could not be purchased by just spending money. This was his father's pride and glory which he had obtained after pouring his blood, sweat, and tears into defending the front line all his life. How could the families of people like Big Shuang and them compare to it? Although the hunter, tracker, and other types of silver base equipment sounded very domineering and aggressive and cost 10 times more than his battle soldier equipment, they could not amplify battle strength like the war god arms. This was the major difference between rare and common products. Frankly speaking, the silver base equipment series was offered by the Alliance to ruthlessly scam the wealthy. So when Li Yunmu had taken out his battle soldier equipment, instantly, the three idiots felt genuinely stupid. Chapter 30, The 5 Specializations. During flux cultivation, one's dominant class was very important because the enemy of fluxers were the endless and inexhaustible dimensional beasts. Therefore, only a few fluxers would move alone when cultivating in the wilderness. Unless one's cultivation reaches at least silver crystal flux disciple, a single person would basically lose any hope of surviving the battle. Why was that so? Because, at the same level, the strength of dimensional beast was higher than the strength of flux disciples. And the gap would grow continuously. So, if a dimensional beast has reached the level of silver crystal, then a fluxer of the same level could not kill it alone. Without a battle squad perfectly allocating every member's dominant class, then not only one person would die, even the whole battle squad could get exterminated. Thus, unless one uses formidable dark flux power or could practice higher grade flux cultivation battle skills, his path to cultivation would always be arduous. As for ordinary fluxers, establishing a battle squad with long-term cooperation becomes a major premise to go into battle. Thus, a battle squad with the most basic roles deployed was certainly exquisite, so rationally distributing fluxers into suitable roles was a necessary course for all fluxers. Among the battle-dominant classes for fluxers, presently, there were 5 classes which were considered as most common and widespread: Armored Soldier, Hunter, Tracker, Range Attacker, and Terminators. Armored Soldier, this class places emphasis on defense, its role was to act as the front-line meat shield. This class requires that the person should have the ideology of self-sacrifice. If a fluxer majors in the role of Armored Soldier, when opening the flux points, they usually attach importance to cultivating the chest and stomach flux points, taking the initiative to ensure that their fleshly body has formidable defense, while at the same time, the equipped or condensed flux power crystal armor they use tend to be thick and heavy. The flux cultivation battle skills they practice was also related to increasing their defense, so their main priority was to increase their body defense to the pinnacle. Thus, the dominant class was not called the dominant class for nothing, because when you choose a dominant class, your future development would be focused towards improving your dominant class. As for Li Yunmu, that would be an armored soldier. As for the hunter class, the people in this role were inclined to act as the vanguard. All things like scouting, alerting the allies, even mounting a sneak attack or assassination, were accomplished by hunters. For hunters, opening the flux points in legs takes precedence, and they place priority on improving their agility and nimbleness to make sure that they could move at high speeds. Next, they would focus on opening the flux points in their arms to guarantee that their hands or the equipment equipped on their hands have formidable attack power. The flux points in the chest and abdomen for defense have the least priority for this class. The flux power crystal armor condensed by them also places the most emphasis on increasing the strength of their legs. The flux cultivation battle skills they learn was also biased towards improving their legs, thus, the hunters could be considered as the most agile and nimble but have the weakest defense. This class just happens to be completely opposite of the armored soldier. Trackers were usually the ones to clear up the mess. Trackers were renowned for hunting people. This class has great similarity with hunters, but for the flux cultivation battle skills they learn as well as the equipment they use and their condensed crystal armor, they place heavy emphasis on mid-ranged attacks and long-distance tracking and pursuing, thus, giving an intimidating sensation to everyone. Range attackers don't need to be explained in detail, as the name implies, they specialize in long-range attacks, thus, this class gives priority to opening the flux points in both arms. The crystal armor, flux cultivation battle skills, everything they learned is inclined towards improving their long-distance offense. The main role of long-range attackers were things like long-distance attacks, sniping, ambushes and so on. As for Terminator, this class was assigned to the most responsible people. The Terminator class wasn't biased towards any one field, rather, aims for holistic growth. This class was usually taken by people acting as squad leaders who also act as the core of the squad. Without formidable resources, a deep background and innate talent, it was hard to qualify for this class, thus, this class requires more money, natural resources, and cultivation compared to other classes. But the holistic approach doesn't always mean mediocre. The name Terminators also seems very aggressive and tyrannical, thus, they were considered as absolutely formidable characters by others. The people in the Terminator class were usually of two extreme types. One was that their strength remains extremely mediocre, the other was that they become extremely formidable and difficult to deal with people. But whatever type they were, all of them have one thing in common, that was that the people in this class must have ample resources and background, at least within the battle squad, they must be more competent and have greater prestige and power compared to others. The 5 above-mentioned classes were the most widespread among Fluxers. In ordinary circumstances, the least number of people required to form a battle squad was 5, which was actually based on the 5 most common roles. However, the most optimum arrangement for these classes within a squad as suggested by the Alliance requires 7 people, 2 armored soldiers, 2 range attackers, 1 hunter, 1 tracker, and 1 terminator. This was considered as the most optimum distribution of classes in a battle squad. However, the Big Bear battle squad was formed of random members, thus, right now, they could only form the battle squad with the least number of people required. Moreover, with Lee Yunmu taking out his battle soldier equipment, he was sufficiently qualified to assume the armored soldier class. Armored soldier, hunter, tracker, terminator, these 4 classes have been properly assigned. Although old Shuang and his fellow 2 idiots had recently awakened, don't have any profound cultivation and haven't even opened any flux points, but by relying on their family's money to successively purchase 3 silver base equipment for the 3 classes and combining it with Lee Yunmu's battle soldier equipment, it was enough. When these 4 equipment appeared simultaneously, immediately, all of them sensed that the battle strength of this squad has soared considerably. Perhaps, they still would not be comparable to Luojin's 7-man Lucky Wind City battle squad, but their power to survive fights shouldn't be much less than the Lucky Star battle squad led by Li Ziyi. This was the dominance of battle squads formed by rich kids. No wonder these 3 idiots had the confidence to come to such a dangerous region like the mountain ridge to court disasters. Then what about her? What class does she specialize in? Li Yunmu was extremely curious about Ling Shuang's dominant class. Speaking frankly, the current battle squad had a major flaw, that was the lack of a ranged attacker, but considering the long sword she was holding in her hands, she clearly wasn't a ranged attacker. I am a warrior. Ling Shuang said after a moment's silence. Warrior? That warrior class different from the most widespread traditional 5 classes? Li Yunmu said in astonishment. After all, he had crammed a lot of knowledge in the library, so Li Yunmu wasn't unfamiliar with the warrior class. Actually, he considered this class as the most ideal role. Warriors, they were proficient in flux cultivation battle skills of all classes, proficient in using equipment of all other roles, moreover, they also have superior survival ability and have advanced defensive strength. They were proficient in both offense and defense. These seemingly superior warriors also have a weak point which wasn't very widespread, and that was their speed was certainly slower compared to agile and nimble hunters. However, this was only compared to hunters. Generally speaking, the people who take the path of warrior also don't have that much lesser speed after they accelerate momentarily during battles. Frankly, this was a kind of role focused on cultivating a loner, a class which mainly focuses on cultivating fearful battle strength, basically not something ordinary flux disciples could touch.